The 200-day moving average is a well-known tool for gauging U.S. equity markets. But could this signal of market momentum provide insight on which way the international market trade winds are blowing? Hello, I'm Michael Mell, Senior Director of Custom Indices at S&P Dow Jones Indices. Joining me today to explore navigating international markets with the 200-day moving average is Sean O'Hara, President Pacer ETFs Distributors. Welcome, Sean. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Sean, can you please define the 200-day moving average and how it has been traditionally used to gauge U.S. market momentum?
Yeah, Michael, the 200-day moving average is nothing more than the last 200 days closing prices of an index, for example, in this case that we're talking about, added together and then divided by 200 to give you a number so that you can determine relative to that average whether or not that index is above or below its moving average. And the thought process is over the last several decades that market participants have been using 200-day moving average strategies to determine whether or not they should be in a risk-on position or a risk-off position. Risk-on when the index is above its moving average, and risk-off when it's actually below its moving average.
Makes sense. I know Pacer believes in the 200-day moving average as a domestic market signal. Does your research show it behaves in the same manner internationally?
Well, that's the research that we have based on the international index that we licensed from S&P. The 200-day moving average actually works in very much the same way that it does on U.S. equity indexes, like our version of Trendpilot that uses the S&P 500. For us, the decision to do this was just to simply broaden out the number of solutions that we had using this Trendpilot methodology. We have several U.S. strategies. This gave us an opportunity to have a broad-based international strategy that went with them for investors who wanted to simply try to replicate what they were doing in the U.S. with Trendpilots.
Great, to go abroad with the 200-day moving average.
Exactly.
Can you talk about the Pacer Trendpilot International Index? How does it work?
The way it works is we take the closing price of that particular index every day and create a 200-day moving average out of that. When the international index is above its 200-day moving average, that indicates to us that we should be in the risk-on position. So we're going to own all of the names, the individual stocks in that index. When that index falls below its 200-day moving average for 5 consecutive days, that's for us the first signal that we should be moving to a little bit more of a risk-off position, so half the portfolio will come out and go into Treasury bills. And then from there, that's sort of our decision box. What we'll do is we'll watch two things. We'll watch the index versus its moving average, and we'll watch the actual slope or the direction of the moving average. If while we're in that 50-50 mode, the index pops back above its 200-day moving average for 5 consecutive days, then we'll go back to 100% long. However, if while we're in that 50-50 position, the moving average itself starts to turn negative, then the rest of the money will come out and go into Treasury bills, and then we'll stay there until the index goes back above its 200-day moving average.
Okay, great. So I'd like to close by asking if Pacer has any thoughts on using the 200-day moving average within emerging or frontier equity markets specifically.
We're looking at furthering the Trendpilot series into a number of different new indexes and strategies. We've looked at emerging markets, for example, in some of the frontier markets. The 200-day moving average, we don't believe is the right moving average to use for those types of indexes just because there's so much more extreme volatility. But I think what you'll see in the future is that we'll build out more Trendpilot strategies here at Pacer, incorporating more and more indexes where we think there's an opportunity for investors to put money to work in a different way.
Thank you, Sean, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate that. To learn more about custom indexing, visit us at spdgi.com/custom indices.